Hey bosses, it's Marie from Asian Boss. As you may know, we're all about bringing you the most authentic voices and stories from Asia. But given the fact that we're still a small media company, there are so many more Asian countries that we'd love to cover, but are simply not capable of yet. In the meantime, how would you like to learn more about Nepal from none other than Miss Nepal? Anushka Shresta won the Miss Nepal World title in 2019 and represented Nepal at the Miss World stage, where she won the Beauty with a Purpose title. If you think she's just another run-of-the-mill beauty contestant, her story might surprise you. Let's take a listen. Hey Anushka, it's great to have you on Asian Boss.
Thank you very much for having me.
For sure. As you may know, we are all about connecting with interesting and inspiring people from all over Asia, and we really thought that you're one of those people. Just to start things off, why don't you introduce yourself in your own words for our global viewers who might not be too familiar with you?
Well, hello, I am Anushka Shresta. Maybe perhaps you would know me as a Miss Nepal World 2019. I had the opportunity to represent Nepal at the Miss World stage in 2019, where I think we did a pretty decent job. Currently, I work as the regional manager for an Australian public university, and I've also recently started my own little startup, which was during the COVID pandemic. So raising a little COVID baby business as well, and that takes up my time. But I think I would like to be introduced ultimately, and that's the path that I'm working towards, is to become a social entrepreneur. That is the big picture. So that is who I am.
Amazing. You know, it's not every day that we get the chance to talk to somebody from Nepal who represents the country and the culture so well. And obviously you're very fluent at English. And actually, is that something that's quite common in Nepal, or did you live abroad for some time?
I would say that, I did study abroad. So at the age of 18, just as a lot of young Nepalis right now, I wanted to test myself, see how I perform outside the comfort zone of my own home and family. So I went to study in Sydney, Australia. I did my bachelor's there, so I did my university there. I'm a commerce graduate with an accounting major, which has sort of become a thing of the past. But I've always loved living in the corporate culture and living, I guess, that corporate life a little. So I lived there for a total of 5 years, and I left a lot of that. So my last job while in Australia was working at the biggest financial institution there, the Commonwealth Bank. So I was in a bank and left that to come into Miss Nepal, which might seem like a very odd choice or a life decision, but it worked out well. It worked out fine. So 5 years in Sydney. But the English speaking skills, I think it's more common than we realize. Of course, English would be not even our second language, given how many ethnic languages there are. So even for myself, I would have an ethnic language, then the Nepali language, and then the English language. But given the influence of media and the globalization that has been happening, a lot of Nepalis are across, I would say, strongly across 80 to 90 countries right now worldwide, from the Middle East to USA, Australia. So that globalization, I think, has had an impact, and the movies and the songs, of course.
I mean, if most people are so fluent in English, maybe we could even do our Asian Boss Street interviews in Nepal. And, you know, because we'd love to expand our coverage and just get to talk to locals that we didn't really tap into yet. And I think could be quite fascinating.
Absolutely. I mean, we are all about Asian bosses out here, right? And although Asia is so vast and so diverse, and Nepal, although it's a very small country, it may seem like a small country geographically. There's just a lot of diversity. When you go just from south to north or east to west, there's just so much diversity, and we'd love for the global audience to get a taste of our diversity as well.
I think a lot of our global viewers are very curious to hear about Nepal in the first place, because it doesn't exactly make international headlines on a daily basis. And yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about Nepal, just some basics like about its location, its population, and maybe some fun facts that you want to share?
Being in Nepal, I think sometimes, quite often, right, the place there we live, we take so much for granted because we've been surrounded by all this diversity and all this nature that we take so for granted. But honestly, when we step a little bit away from our home countries, wherever we are, be it while it was studying abroad or especially getting to represent the country on this global stage, you realize and you appreciate all the little things and the big things that are there. So most commonly, I think you would know of Nepal as the land of the highest mountain that there is. And in fact, 8 of the 12 highest peaks worldwide would be in Nepal. So the land of the Everest, as it is historically known. So geographically, very beautiful. It is also very popular for tourism in that way. Very popular religious sites, very many UNESCO World Heritage sites here as well. It has more than 100 ethnicities, which is diverse in its food, in its language, in its costumes, what we wear as well. But what binds us together is that element of being Nepali.
And how come that there are so many ethnic groups in Nepal? Because it's such a tiny country, right? I understand that in many other cultures, like Southeast Asian countries like Indonesia, has like a ton of different islands, so it's understandable that little ethnic groups form. But how is that possible in such a small country like Nepal?
It is very interesting. I think the geography, although I see Nepal like a slice of a beautiful cake. You know how you have these layers because it's a rectangle, and then you've got these clean-cut layers. So not very long ago, I actually took a helicopter ride, and those are very popular in Nepal. And I love helicopter rides. I love heli rides. So we took a helicopter ride from the southernmost part to the northernmost part. And within 45 minutes, it was high school geography revised. You could see the change in land, in the plants, in the climate. I mean, 45 minutes, you go from one end of the country to another, and it is so different. So perhaps one of the major reasons of the civilizations being so different, although it is relatively a small country size-wise, is that the geography is so different, and lifestyles are very often impacted by the geography, right? What we eat, what we wear, how we celebrate. We are located, so we have India on 3 sides. So India on our left, right, and below us, and we have China on top of us. So we're a landlocked country. So no beaches in Nepal over here, but I think the rest of our beauty compensates for us being a landlocked country. Even as a young Nepali in school, we would look at that as something that holds us back. You know, geographically, we're a small country in between perhaps 2 of the most budding large economies worldwide, right? India and China. But now we see that as an absolutely amazing opportunity. And yeah, so that is where we are. We were a monarchy for a very long time, but now we are a federal republic. And that is it about our little beautiful country.
Wow, I didn't know that you guys had a monarchy up until recently.
Sorry, up until 2006, it was formally abolished, the monarchy. There was ceremonial monarchy for a while. So very interesting history, very interesting culture to read up about. Sometimes I'm myself surprised that so much has happened in such a short span of time in our country. Yeah.
And you also mentioned that it's between those 2 superpowers, between India and China. Does that sometimes cause complications, or does Nepal usually try to stay neutral?
Historically, it depends on what side you look at as well, right? We have had our rifts and we have had difficulties, but we've had good relations as well as a landlocked country wherein a lot of imports have to happen, where the economy needs to run. Of course, we've had support from both sides. So we do have regular visits in between those other countries. We had a visitor from China as well, from the leadership not too long ago as well. So I would say that overall, there is a shared camaraderie about our borders, and we've been independent. And I think that is one thing that we really pride ourselves off. Although there was internal colonization when we look historically, but Nepal was never directly ruled by international, it was never colonized. It was always an independent Nepal, so to say.
So what does it mean to win the Miss Nepal title? How big of a deal is it? Is it like super competitive and nationally televised? And do you become like a instant national celebrity after you win the title? Like, how was that?
Honestly, it's still sinking in, all of this. But I feel like in Nepal, the title of Miss Nepal is very much loved indeed. Pageantry means different things across different countries. In some nations, it is considered as a sport where the whole point is to win when you go internationally. So there would be pageant coaches, there would be so much preparation, and the focus is to prepare that candidate to go out there and win. In some countries, it is considered as a very viable gateway into the glamour and the media industry. industry, where they go on to further become actors and whatnot. In the context of Nepal, to each their own how each contestant takes it upon themselves. But generally, what I've seen is that it is considered as an amazing platform to bring about social change from. The whole title of Miss Nepal, even when you go on to villages, remote villages, and there's just so much love associated to that title of Miss Nepal. So the pageant over here sends its winners to different international pageants. So we send our delegate to Miss World, Miss Universe, but generally the amount of love and expectation as well. Oh, you're Miss Nepal, what have you done for your country? That is a very general sentiment that goes across. So in Nepal, I feel like, yes, it is quite a big deal in the amount of attention, appreciation, and expectation that you get as the title holder for Miss Nepal. In the past, our winners have also done an incredible job in utilizing that title and bringing about good actual sustainable social change, be it by building schools, building hospitals, taking up causes and still running through with them. And I think that's what we try to do as well. So during my time as Miss Nepal World as well, we started up a project, and that was in 2019. So it's been 2 years, but it's still going on strong. I still visit the village at least once every 2 months. So that is, I think, the impact that people have and the impression that people have of the pageant.
Was becoming Miss Nepal something you ever imagined to become when you were a child, or were you occupied with other things when you were a child? And actually, what was your childhood like in Nepal? Because I think that could be very different from other countries.
Yeah. So I was born and brought up in the capital, so I did not really have many people that have migrated to the capital have a village to go back to once a year and travel and see a little bit of Nepal. So I didn't have that. All of it was Kathmandu, and it's a valley. So everything was in this little bowl for me. My world was this little bowl, this valley. And growing up, I did not really have a clear direction of what is it that I wanted to become. We would have to make these little autobiographies of ourselves in school and paste it on our walls on the very first day of school every year. So year 1 to year 10, you would write your hobbies, your aim, and you paste it on the wall. And my aim would just change every year. Some year it was fashion designer, some year it would be artist, some year it would be whatnot. So I really didn't have a definitive passion growing up. And no, I did not think that I would become Miss Nepal, not because I was not confident or comfortable in how I looked, but I objectively, I guess, observed that the notion of commercial beauty, what is considered beautiful, lighter skin tone, perhaps more petite nose, definitely nearly as hairy as I am, a more hourglass figure. So I didn't really see myself fitting into what I thought was considered commercially beautiful. But watching this national pageant on television every year, I couldn't sit down. I would be so excited about this pageant. When the questions were asked, I had to give that answer in my head. I don't know, it excited me. It lit something up inside of me. So when I went, and I never took this idea really, really seriously, but when I went to Australia to study, and then I thought, okay, if I tell myself that I want to become Miss Nepal, I've got to give it a try. It is so much out of my comfort zone, but it's got to be worth a try. To overcome my fear of failure, I think I participated, because if I won, I'd win the pageant. But if I didn't win, I would win over this fear of failure. So that was the whole journey from childhood to pageantry.
Wow. And before that, you went to Australia, right? And what was that like? Because all your life you've lived in Nepal, and then you ventured out into a Western world. And what were some of the cultural shocks that you had to go through at the very beginning?
So many. So it has become quite a common trend for young adults to choose a broad education out here in Nepal, perhaps for the global exposure and whatnot. And for me as well, it was a step out of my comfort zone. I selected Australia because I did have extended relatives over there. It was not too risque to go into a place where I knew absolutely nobody. So the Nepali community out there was pretty strong. I'm not sure I can speak for the whole country, but it's funny because one of the first things that my relatives out there would tell me is, okay, so when you're going out with your friends, you just can't grab a fry from their plate, all right? You've got to ask, and usually everyone just eats their own meals. And I was like, really?
Because you guys share food in Nepal?
Yeah, usually, you know how you would order would be you'd order 5 things and everyone just grabs everything from everywhere.
It's so funny because we have the same thing sometimes, like here at Asian Boss, because we have lots of people from different countries working here, and some of them are like from Southeast Asian countries, like freelancers, and then some people who mainly grew up in the States. And then when we were at the table, it's like, okay, do we share food or not? Because again, it's like this cultural clash, right?
One of my bestest friends in Australia did not like hugs. And if I was in Nepal, it would just be considered maybe standoffish, you know. But there it was like, yeah, everyone has their own personal boundaries and it's okay to vocalize them and it is okay to say what you want and what you don't want. And necessarily, if someone wants things that you don't, it doesn't mean that they're rude or mean. Just having that respect for individual choices I think is something beautiful that I learned over there.
Yeah, for sure. And while you were in Australia, did you have any like struggles getting by? Like, what were some of the obstacles you had to go through while living abroad by yourself?
Most of it was internal, I think. So a lot of us, I took out an education loan to study over there, but I really, really did not want to wanted to lessen the financial burden on my parents as much as I could. So I tried to work as much as I could. And I think so I did. I worked at McDonald's. I worked as an office cleaner for a while because you know that made a lot of good money. So that dignity of labor, because usually I don't know how it would be in a lot of the other Asian countries, but here, you know, when you wear a shirt and when you sit on a desk and work on a computer, that would be considered dignified, and doing anything else would not be considered dignified. So understanding that dignity of labor perhaps was difficult. So when I was working at McDonald's or when I was working as a cleaner, initially I felt very uncomfortable, but I think that was a very big step towards personal growth of respecting every job, that there's no good job and bad job, and respecting every job. So that was there. Of course, having wanting to save up for the tuition fees. So, you know, you would calculate all the time. You would be like, okay, this is my weekly pay. I've got to pay the rent. I've got to buy my groceries. I've got to travel. And this is what I will save. So working in a very financially aware situation was, I wouldn't say difficult. I mean, it is something that a lot of people do, perhaps everybody does, but that was a little bit of a change of having to be very financially mindful.
Especially because Australia is such an expensive country, and I don't know what the prices are in Nepal, but I can imagine the contrast being very big. Like how much, like for example, what's the average income for somebody in Nepal in comparison to Australia, right? Like, do you know?
Yes, so that's a lot of the part of my job right now is to guide students who want to study abroad. So although abroad education, yes, if you just convert the currencies, then it comes across as very expensive, but then it's also a conscious choice that we do take to go abroad because there are good schools over here as well. So the way I see it is it's an investment. That education is an investment, not just an expense. So that is a decision to make because average, say, a semester worth of fees would be 15,000 Australian dollars, which would be maybe a whole year's worth of income for a family. So when we look at it that way, but people are managing, a lot of people are managing because it's a choice that they make because they see this as a worthy investment to be made. That with that education and with that time abroad, you can make a good life, a better life. And of course, feeling alone when you feel that, oh, I don't have my immediate family over here, what do I do? And not wanting to trouble your family back home by sharing how bad you feel. So those would have been the initial struggles. And that is what I suggest students living abroad as well, is that you need that support. And when you don't share what is going on with you back home, maybe because you want to protect them or you don't want to give them trouble, but then you don't have that support system, and that becomes very, very important. So those, I think, would have been some of the struggles because friends would be, say someone studying in Nepal would have the time to do flash mobs and would have the time to do college events and live as a student, whereas for us, any free moment you would just be trying to work so that you can save up.
Were there any moments you regretted going to Australia just because of those personal struggles?
I remember very clearly just breaking down, perhaps in my first year over there, thinking, what am I doing over here? Why did I decide to put myself through this? I could have done without this pain, and why? But I think the biggest lesson that my time in Australia has taught me is life is as easy as you take it to be. Like even right now, I could look at my time in Nepal as a very painful one because I've got to travel maybe not the best roads, maybe the living standard is not as great as I want it to be. Or I could look at it as I get to stay at home with my family. I get to run my own business. Yes, it's challenging, but it depends which lens you look at. I'm not talking about a toxic positivity and just thinking that, yeah, it's all rainbows and sunshine, but it really depends on the lens that you look at it from. And in my earlier days, while I looked at Australia as a painful experience that I had to endure, I now look at it as an amazing time that taught me quite a lot of things.
Okay, so then you went back to Nepal and participated at the Miss Nepal competition. What made you do that?
It was definitely the fear of failure that I wanted to overcome. And also I wanted to create impact. Like I said, from a child, I never really had a concrete plan of what I wanted to do. But while I was living and working in Australia, I had the opportunity to work as a volunteer community coach. So it was a 10-month program that I did. And that was the moment where I think it all clicked, that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to become someone who enables people. Our job was to coach 16-year-old kids into achieving whatever goal that they decided. So the young lady that I mentored wanted to open up an animal shelter. And we walked through it for 10 months, and she did open up an animal shelter. And I know nothing about animal shelters, but then I understood the power of empowerment and the power of capability building, that, okay, when you guide people and you grow yourself as well, and then you help people become things, it's wonderful. So I think that was when I thought, okay, if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, Miss Nepal is a great launching pad, so to say. So we worked on a project. I said, I want to go to this village. I want to run a capability development program. And for that, I am willing to get out of my comfort zone, wear these heels that I've never, ever worn, glam myself up as I would never do before, because that is my why. That is what I want to achieve. And that was the reason why I took this big leap of faith to get into pageantry.
Wow. And then obviously you won. And what was going through your mind in that moment? Like right after you won, how did your life change? Or what were some of the opportunities you got? What went through your mind?
Immediate preceding batch had actually performed exceptionally well in all the international pageants. So in 2018, top 10 at Miss Universe, top 12 in Miss World, and 3 subtitles. So it was, everyone had performed very well. So very honestly, my first thought immediately after winning was, oh my God, I've got to work so hard to prove myself, because I have very, very big shoes to fill. Because as the winner of Miss Nepal World, I realized pretty quickly that I would not even be considered a winner up until I got Nepal to that international stage. So my immediate thought was, okay, got to work really, really hard. And that is what we did for the rest of the 7 to 8 months. I was crowned in May in 2019, and we went on to London for Miss World in December 2019. So those 7 months around was hectic preparation.
And what do you think made you specifically stand out? Because, I mean, how many competitors did you have? Like, what do you think were your distinguishing factors that made you win?
I have to be honest, when I went into Miss World, I was very overwhelmed. It was this sea of amazing, beautiful, tall, good-looking women. And I thought that I was not even seen. I mean, I thought, okay, I'm not the tallest, I'm not the most striking looking, maybe I don't have the best outfit. So what if these 4 weeks over here, nobody even notices that I was here? What about all those months of hard work? And I would talk about this with my friends back home as well, is that, what do I have? What do I have to show? And then they would say, okay, look deep into yourself, because everyone has a unique characteristic. Everyone does, and so do you. So I thought that perhaps my passion about my project and my voice was something that I could help stand out. So I stopped trying to dress up the most uniquely, because my strength perhaps was my voice, and that is what I worked on. And before we knew it, I think that is what got recognized. So in 2019, Miss World happened in London, and we were taken to Oxford, wherein only 5 representatives were allowed to speak. So I was selected from Asia to speak up at Oxford and have a dialogue with students at Oxford. And later, when we went to the House of Lords, where we were hosted for an afternoon tea, I had the opportunity to speak as well. So that is where I think confidence for me really comes from a place of sincerity. If I am talking about things that I do not believe in, no matter how much I try, I will not be able to be confident. But we had worked so hard on our purpose, on the project, that if I said, if you wake me up at 2 a.m. and tell me that here's the finale, pitch your project right now, I will do that because it's in my blood and it's in my veins right now. So I would say that perhaps it is that maybe made me recognized amongst that amazing sea of ambassadors.
You really sound like a Miss Nepal, I have to say. So while we're on the topic of beauty pageants, we're really curious about the beauty standards in Nepal. Like, what would the average Nepalese person find attractive in a woman?
That is a question whose answer I think is very much changing, because even in the national pageant, no matter which year's contestant book you would pick up, you would see that all 25 contestants look quite different. Some of them would have a darker complexion and a protruding nose and bushy brows as myself, and some would maybe look like yourself with a paler complexion, with have more Mongolian features, and I would perhaps be considered more Aryan features. So that is very, very diverse. I would say that globally, we have been talking about beauty standards changing and owning yourself. Perhaps there would have been a time where fairer complexion would have been considered more beautiful, and perhaps straighter hair would be considered more beautiful as opposed to curls. But that is changing so fast, and it is amazing. So if you look at the winners and the contestants in the past couple of years, or even from the very beginning, to be honest, everyone looks very, very different. And the fact that they all look very different, they have very different features, is testament to the fact that Nepal considers many kinds of beauties beautiful. And it is more about what you do with what you have that is considered most beautiful, so to say.
Because we know there's a lot of Asian countries who actually are very influenced by the Korean beauty standard, for example, like very fair skin, super, super slim. Would you say that's kind of similar still? Like, do they model after Korean standard, or is Nepal kind of isolated in this case and just want to celebrate diversity?
I would say that we're not untouched. I mean, Korean dramas did take a lot of peak even when I was a kid. Boys Before Flowers is the only one that I've watched. But there have been a lot of people that are influenced by Korean beauty. And the way I see it is, there is nothing wrong with wanting to look a certain way as long as your sense of self-worth is not attached to looking a certain way. There's also debates that go about, is artificial enhancements good or bad? Should they be allowed or not? And for me, it is to each their own, as long as your sense of self-worth is not tied to looking a certain way. I mean, I know that historically there has been so much prejudice against maybe a darker skin tone that right now supporting, I don't know, fairness creams or fairer looking makeup is considered politically incorrect. But for me, if you want to tan yourselves, go tan yourselves. If you want to apply a fairness cream, go do it. But as long as it doesn't impact your sense of self, about how you feel about yourself and how worthy you feel by looking a certain way, it should be fine. So to answer your question, yeah, there is a lot of Korean impact. There was a time when there were so many lenses going abroad, and guilty as charged, I've tried like this Korean flatter brow as well. Does not go well with my face.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you feel insecure about your looks at some point during the competition because there are so many beauty competitors, or were you always kind of, confident?
I mean, I'm not immune to feeling underconfident or feeling that I'm not the best in the room, that I don't deserve to be here. And I think that is one thing that I consciously try to work on. And that is one thing that I would tell to anybody, whether going on beauty pageants or whatnot, is to say that we live in a funny world as women, or people who identify ourselves as women, is that, yes, we want that makeup. I'm wearing it right now. And then many would argue, oh, if you're so confident in how you look, why do you want to wear makeup? You're a hypocrite right there. But again, it is about wanting to do something because I feel better, and having to do something is completely different. So if I'd forgotten to do my makeup right now, I wouldn't mind coming in for the interview because my sense of self-worth is not tied onto that. So I have felt at times like, oh my God, she looks so much better than I am, and perhaps she'll win, or I'm not the best in the room. But it is about reminding yourself of your worth and your purpose, and it's a continuous process. And I still go through it every day as well. It's about reminding yourself that the world is abundant. And the fact that if someone is beautiful doesn't mean that you're less beautiful. If someone's better doesn't mean that you're worse. There's enough good in the world to go around. So I feel like it's that abundance mindset that fuels me, as opposed to that scarcity mindset of thinking better or worse, that it's a constant competition.
And did you receive any criticisms, like public criticisms, after you won? Because as you probably know, once you get to certain like public figure level, the bigger you are, the more also negative attention will attract you. Did you go through any of those?
Absolutely. I think a lot was commented on that I do not look commercially beautiful as expected. Like I said, perhaps with the size of my nose, or whether I was eligible to be considered Miss Nepal because of how flat my chest was and all of that. So I think all of that, I would consider myself lucky that it didn't really impact me, because I was so much focused on what I've got to do with what I have, what was possible with this crown. Because when people already have an opinion, no matter how much you try to change it, they'll have that opinion. But we saw that gradually changed. Those were the initial few comments, perhaps towards the first few months after my crowning. But as we released the project, as I started giving interviews, and as people started to see me for what I thought and believed as opposed to how I looked, that changed very, very positively, to say that, oh, okay, she's doing what she can with this crown, and that is why she's a deserving winner. Not because her chest is a certain way or her nose is a certain way or because she looks a certain way. So yeah, that is where my focus was.
You won the Beauty with Purpose award, right? Which actually leads us to the social causes that you're very passionate about. What are the social causes you would love to see change, specifically in Nepal?
There's so many, and it was, what do we choose, right? Because I didn't want to spread myself too thin as well, that I'm going here and supporting all these different initiatives, but I'm just there to, I don't know, cut a ribbon. I wanted to invest myself, so my thinking was go deep rather than go wide. So while I support all these different causes, from education, empowerment, burns violence, acid attack survivors, and whatnot, the project that we chose to go deep into was a capability development program in a village in Sindhupalchok. So that is the one that's still running now. So what we did was we did health, education, livelihood. So we had sort of a triangle. So we supported a local school, wherein we gave scholarships to students, we provided school lunches, we started sponsoring teachers in a school where there were only 2 teachers to teach 120 kids. We sponsored teachers, so now they have 8 teachers, 1 teacher in every classroom. We took on laptops, and we took in digitization and all of that. We started providing teachers training, because when the teachers are more capable, it definitely shows an impact on the kids. We ran health camps, we ran dental health camps, eye checkups, general body checkups, because we didn't just want this project to run as long as we were finding donations. We wanted it to be self-sufficient. So we gave in livelihood generation training, such as carpet weaving and incense making skills, candle making, brick stone making, bricks making. So all of those trainings were what we gave. And 2 years down the line, it's a slow and steady process, but I feel like it's still happening, because ultimately what we'd want is for the mothers of the village to have income generating streams, the income of which they can invest in their own child's education. And for me, this project is successful when it works without me. Like that is my goal. As long as this project runs just because there is my name or my title or my face attached to it, it's not a sustainable option. So for us, it's a constant effort to try and make the whole project sustainable, and then take this model and replicate it as well.
Right. So when you first went into that village, right, what was the living conditions like for most of those people, and how did it improve thanks to your projects that you were running there?
This region that we're talking about was one of the most heavily impacted during the 2015 earthquake as well. So Nepal had a big earthquake back in 2015. So they were studying in a makeshift school. And the school was being rebuilt by many NGOs that were working there. What struck me the most was, although this was just about 70 kilometers from the capital, from where I am right now, which by Western standards is an hour's drive or even lesser, it was as if the place was 70 years behind, because people would still be bartering for food. They would be going abroad, they would be maybe going to do labor work abroad, and there was like a big alcoholism problem as well, not a lot of trust in education, because why study, like what are the opportunities, why bother? The girl child trafficking and organ trafficking was also very heavily rampant. So there was like all these problems, and where do we start? We couldn't just go in as saviors and be like, I have come to save you. That change has to come from within. So how we worked was really work alongside the community, sat with them, talked with them. What are your real problems? Why do you not send your kids to school? Why don't you feel like school is good? Why do you think that there is no point? And then when we started looking at all of these problems, we always say one step at a time. So we started building that trust within people. If I go in from Kathmandu, I've had this abroad education, and I just walk in and talk about the importance of education, I feel like there will always be this sense of otherness to say that, yeah, that's your story. That's not our story. That's your story. And it sounds good, but it's still your story. So when we appointed teachers, girls that were born in that same village, that studied in that same school, just a few girls that had continued their education, we appointed them as teachers. So now they could see that, okay, this is why education matters, and this is how our kids' life could be as well. So it is that consistent effort. So now when we see the dropout rates have really, really gone down, children have started returning to school, they want to be at school, parents have started being more involved in the kids' education. They're more aware of what life could be. They are more engaged, as opposed to thinking, this is us and this is life and this is the poverty cycle that we'll always be into. The attendance in the health camps have really increased. That trust on education, ultimately, education is a tool to become anything that you want to be. So when we see that belief, that I think has been the biggest change. When we first went in, the children in the school, the girls especially, would not even raise their heads because they had like no self-confidence. You couldn't even see their eyes because they'd be like this. So when you go in there and they start dancing, and then they start writing these letters about what they want. I recently got a letter to say request for dancing uniform supplies, and to be able to raise their voice to say, hi, I want this. I think those are the changes that we really see. So I feel like a few more years down the line, when the village has its first graduates that are doing well for themselves, and they become the trailblazers, they become the change makers, they become the torch bearers of that change, is when we will be able to ultimately gain their trust.
Wow. Was there any specific person or a specific, child or girl story that really touched you in particular?
I remember meeting this kid in the 5th grade. His name's Sanjit, and he's just the smiliest kid that you could see. It's just this wide grin, but he wouldn't respond when I asked him, hey, what's your name? Who's in your family? He would just keep smiling back, that grin, right? And I asked the teachers, why isn't he talking back? And he said, he's deaf. He's deaf. He can't hear or he can't talk. But the kid still walks an hour and a half, because the village, I mean, it's a rocky terrain, right? The school would be a good 1 hour walk from many homes. But he would still come to school every day. I really believe that God helps those who help themselves. So that was that spirit. Here is a child who is deaf, and he still chooses to come to school. He can write his name. So this is a place where people want to do better. This is a place that is seeking opportunities. And if me, with everything that I've earned, can make the slightest difference in helping people that want to do better, that would be it. So when we saw Sanjit, he was wearing slippers that was tied by these cords, like these wires that are there, because his slipper was torn. And I said, if this kid is going to tie his slippers with wires and walk an hour and a half every day when he's deaf to come to school, this is the community where I want to make whatever little humble difference I can. And when we still go back, we've become very close with his family now, with his mom, and we are looking into getting him into a special abilities school over here because there's not a lot of kids with differently abled children over there, but he still comes to school. So those are the little lives, you know, when we recognize people over there, when Sanjit's mother comes and tells me like, oh, you're here, how have you been? And, you know, they have these little vegetables that they've grown in their garden. When kids that wouldn't speak to you now come with flowers to give to you, they make cards. It's like, this is the impact that is there.
Right. You also mentioned that there were earthquakes. How common are earthquakes? Is it because of the geographical location?
So if we look at the earthquake map worldwide, Nepal would be a red, like it would be a danger zone. But then even in the capital, the buildings are not earthquake safety standard. They're not abiding by earthquake safety standards. I don't know, perhaps because we think it won't happen. You know how you never think it's going to happen to you until it actually does. So those places in the earthquake impacted areas, although the cities were also very heavily impacted as well, it is their home. I think relocating is a very big thing. And very, very recently, about 2 or 3 months ago, there was massive flooding, unexpected flooding that combined with landslides. So houses were literally, they were covered in sludge. So that also happened. And relocation is something that when people have spent their lives, their generations over there, just relocating somewhere might not be like an option, but they do when they have to. But the 2015 earthquake was very, very large, a lot of loss of life. I was in Sydney at that point, and I came back a few months later because it felt like I'd never get to see my family again, you know, and it felt like, okay, if this is the end, I want to be with them in it. So that was how it felt.
I see. And there's also one point you mentioned that can't be ignored. You mentioned that there was it human trafficking? That's also like an issue in that area. Like, could you tell us about that a little bit?
Not long ago, there would not be a single house wherein a girl child has not been taken. So the houses where we live right now, when we go in and stay for a homestay in that village, I have met girls that have come back. I've met people that have come back. So poverty, that whole cycle has more of an impact than we realize, because then it becomes a way of sustenance, a way of livelihood, that you sell a daughter, that you sell an organ. And it just becomes so acceptable because there is no other way. So I think that is something that we're trying to, it's reduced immensely, it's reduced incredibly thanks to a lot of efforts from lots of different teams and organizations, but it's a continuous process.
Yeah. So in that village, how many people lived in that village? Like, how many did you help in the end?
So it's 160 households, I'd say roughly 600 in population. The children at our school, about 120 children in our school. So directly or indirectly, they would all have been impacted, but directly we try to impact at least the 120 students that are there, the 8 teachers that are now there. We've established a homestay with 5 families. So I would say the impact from the health camp that all 600 attended and people from neighboring villages too, I would say that the lives impacted and touched up until date would have to be well over 500.
Wow. And I mean, that doesn't sound like a project that just can be done in a day. You know, what were the biggest struggles along the way, like in terms of helping the village, maybe logistical or financial issues that you had?
Yes, many logistical, financial, also, you know, we think that I'm going in with a good intention, so it'll just happen. I'll go there, I'll tell that I want to help people, and people will just want to be helped. So those were the challenges that for generations, for centuries, there have been organizations that have come in and come out, but their lives haven't changed, right? So earning that trust, work with us, that earning that trust was, I think, very difficult because it's not a magic broom that'll just work its magic in a month or two. So those were the challenges, definitely raising funds, because overall, I think our project ran well over 60,000 US dollars that we raised individually, which was quite a task. I went on to the States for fundraisers, to Australia. There was many helping hands that came together, that believed in this project, that believed in my vision and our vision for this project. So a lot of helping hands have come together to make it all happen.
Wow, that sounds incredible. You just casually helped an entire village. I mean, you talk about it as if it's such a normal thing to do, but it's actually like, it's a very incredible thing. And I don't think a lot of people, first of all, wouldn't have the power to do so. But I mean, you really use your voice to help so many lives, right? Besides helping an entire village, what have you been up to since you won your beauty pageant titles?
I wanted to really channel all that love and support that we'd garnered from all over Nepal and the supporters of Nepal. So we've started a little startup. It is 12 months old now. It's a Nepali authentic desserts chain. So the authentic desserts in Nepal, they've really lost their touch a little and they are, I would say, in the verge of extinction, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to have Nepali desserts, authentic Nepali dessert recipes as a luxury premium product. We have our production facility right here in Kathmandu, and we do online sales. So that has been something that's been keeping me really busy. And I've tried to channel all that love that people have for Nepal and utilize it to promote something Nepal further on, even beyond the pageant journey.
Wow, so you're preserving a part of Nepalese culture through your new startup. It seems like you're a very motivated and ambitious, driven woman. I mean, how old are you? You're super young and you already did all these things.
I'm turning 26 soon. So yeah, try to be. I do have my down days as well, but at the end of the day, I really believe that do what you can with what you have, start where you are. That's what keeps me going. Anytime I feel overwhelmed or anytime I feel like, oh, what more can I do or am I doing enough? That's what keeps me grounded. Start where you are, do what you can with what you have.
That's a very nice quote. And is there anything else in particular that you want to achieve in the future?
There is so much that I want to achieve, but ultimately we do everything for happiness, right? Everything that we work towards, everything is for happiness. So I would want to be more aligned with myself, more aligned with the universe, so to say. And that is what I think I'm working on, is that personal growth of not just being materialistically, not just being driven in a materialistic world, but more in tune with myself as well, able to be happy and content and spread that happy and content energy around.
Wow. You know, we're very proud of our Global Asian Boss community because, you know, they're very full of culturally aware and super curious people. Young people who might also want to become world leaders and want to leave a positive impact on the world in their own way. So is there any last message you want to tell our Asian Boss community?
What I'd like to say is there are times, especially during our time, when it feels everything's been done and feeling overwhelmed can be quite natural. I would say, as cliched as it sounds, believe in yourself and persist, because very often we start things, we are passionate about something, we start it, but we seek immediate results and that might not come. No matter how hard you work, you can't grow a tree overnight. So balancing that patience and impatience to get things done, and persistence is really the key. So stay true to your dream. Don't be afraid to ask yourself, what is it that I want to become? And not everybody might want to, leave a positive legacy in the world, but you've got to ask yourself, what is it that I want to become? What are my values? So don't be afraid to ask yourselves the hard questions. And although there might be days that seem not like it, you are worthy, you are kind, and you are loved.
That's a very beautiful end message. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for reaching out. I'm really glad we could do this, and we'll stay in touch.